In this video, I'm going to show you 3 different ways we can master a track that was made on GarageBand iOS. Hey guys, JP here. Welcome to the channel. If you've never been here before and you want to learn all about music tech and looping, start now by hitting the subscribe button, click that bell, and you won't miss anything. This is episode 4 in the 5-part series From Idea to Release. We've had an idea and we've got that idea down. We've recorded it in GarageBand. We've mixed it in GarageBand, and now I'm going to show you different ways we can master that track. So mastering is the final step in audio post-production. The whole purpose of mastering is to balance all the sonic elements of a stereo mix and optimize your song so it can be played across all different kinds of systems. Think about the speakers in your phone, and then think about the speakers in, say, a club. Think about the speakers on a stereo. The audio quality should be universal across all of these devices. Now, mastering is seen as a little bit of a dark art, and mastering engineers are able to push the boundaries of your sound without compromising on the audio quality and making the sound unified. So to get this track out of GarageBand so we can master it, we need a stereo mix. Now, in a previous video, I've been talking about making sure you've got headroom. So I've been talking about -3 to -6 dB. If I was to just export this track as it is now, GarageBand does auto normalization. So what that'll do is it'll actually bring it back up to 0 dB, even if you turn down the master volume. So what we need to do is we need to do a little trick. And what we're going to show you is using the effects tab. So if we now tap on effects, it will bring up an effects tab. And what we're going to do is we're just going to record for around about 2 or 3 bars just to get an effects channel on the mix. That's all we need. I'm going to get rid of the effects themselves, and we now have an effects channel, as you can see there at the bottom. There's the little purple marker there where I recorded something in. We're actually going to get rid of that completely. So we select the effects track, and this is where we can get a master channel. So if we go to the settings, and we've got the visual EQ there, if we tap on the visual EQ, we've got the visual EQ, and that's fine. But on the right-hand side, we've actually got gain. And this is a little bit of a trick we can do with GarageBand, where I can now actually pull this back about 5 dB, and then it's going to change the whole track. So now when I export it, it's going to be -5 dB. I'm not going to play around with the EQ at all. So we click done, then we're going to click on the little documents at the top here, and what this will do is it will save it. So now we're here, we're just going to tap on the song. We click share, it gives us the options for song, ringtone, or project. So we need song. We need one stereo mix so we can master that track. We're going to click song, and we want the highest quality available, which is 44.1 kilohertz at 24 bits. So if we click share, it's then going to say what we're going to do. What we're going to do is we're going to go open in. It'll then export the song. Now, depending on which iPad you have, or if you're doing it on the iPhone, it may take a little bit of time, a couple of minutes. Obviously, be patient while it's creating that track for you. Cool, so we've got the You and Me track. It says audio recording, 68.9 megabytes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click Save to Files. When we hit Save to Files, it's just going to give us where you want to store it. So if I click Save to Files now, so you can save it in a couple of different places. So we've got on my iPad, iCloud Drive. You can save it to Dropbox, or if you've got any other online storage. For now, I'm going to save it onto on my iPad so I can grab it later. I've got a folder here that I've already set up, which is called Audio Masters. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it in there. Now we've got the track actually mixed, what we're going to do is we're going to grab that stereo track so we can master it. So we're going to click a brand new track. So we just need a track to be launched on GarageBand. So I'm going to use the audio recorder. And then we're not actually going to use the actual audio recorder. We just need to get to this point. And then I just need to make sure that we're not in 8 bars and we're in automatic. So once we've got that set up with automatic, all we then need to do is go into where it says loops. We need to grab the file. It's not there right now. So we go browse items in the files app. On my iPad, I've got that folder I created before, which is Audio Masters. And there it is, You and Me. So if we tap on it, give it a second, and then what it's going to do, it's going to bring it into GarageBand in the Files app. So now if I scroll down, there it is, youandme.wav. So if I hold that down, I can drag that in. We can now get rid of the other microphone track, and then all we do is use pinch to pinch out, and there is our file. For mastering, we're going to be spending most of our time in plugins and EQ. The reason is because we're going to be adding a couple of things to actually make this a mastered track. So the next thing we need to do is make sure we've got a little bit of a gap for the track. Some playing services like Spotify actually mix tracks from one to the other. The second I hit play, you start hearing you start hearing the hi-hats. So what we want to do is we want to actually move it ever so slightly, just for a couple of seconds, just so we can actually get a little bit of space. There we go. First of all, we're going to take as many effects as we can off so it's flat. So there is one there that's called Effect EQ. We can get rid of that straight away. You're always left with a noise gate, a compressor, and a visual EQ. The only one I'm really going to be playing with is the compressor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the visual EQ up to the top. So we've got the compressor there straight away. I want to put a limiter on this so it doesn't go past 0 dB. So once I start adding more things in, we're going to play with that like 0 to 3, 0, 6 dB. We're going to start gradually going back up to 0, but we don't want it to punch through that hole. You're going to get digital distortion and it will sound terrible. So what I'd like to do is add a limiter in. Now when you go to this, it says effects and you've got audio unit extensions. Now I've got a couple from other companies, but there are some audio unit extensions that are from Apple. You don't see them as standard, and they're all these orange ones right here. So if you do want to see them, all you need to do is come out of GarageBand completely and then just go to your settings. Scroll down till you find GarageBand. There it is. And then all you need to do is scroll down again and it says enable iOS effect plugins. And these are switch on to make the Apple iOS effect plugins available in your GarageBand projects. And there's some really good ones that are there. So we can go straight back to GarageBand, go to the bottom one first, and then what we'll do is look at audio unit extensions. We're going to have a look at adding a limiter. So the Apple one is AU peak limiter. So if we add that in now, and you'll see a little orange tab there. So these plugins aren't visually the best, but they are plugins by Apple, which are the ones from GarageBand on the Mac, and they do the job. So if I tap on peak limiter, it just shows you a very basic thing. It gives you attack time, release time, pre-gain, and listening amount. So I'm going to play the track, and I'm going to start messing around with it just so you can hear what effect it's doing.
I can't settle down without you. I can't fall asleep at all, looking at the stars above us.
Now, one thing you'll notice when you start making changes whilst it's playing, you may hear a little bit of clicking, certainly when you're playing with things like limiters or attack times. Don't worry about that. It's not that there's something wrong with your audio. It's just as it's adjusting, the computer is figuring out what you need to do.
Did you ever fear you'd fall?
Okay, so that's a good start. We're going to leave that there for now. We are going to come back to it a little bit later because I'm going to actually now, even though I've added it, I'm going to turn that off. Now, there's a reason. What we're going to do is we're going to start playing with the compressor, and the compressor is going to compress the whole track. So we need to compress it just a little bit so it can actually push the quieter bits up, and then the limiter is going to make sure we don't peak. So we turn the limiter off for now. We've got a base for where we need it to be, and we're going to go into the compressor. Now, if you know how to use a compressor, fantastic. If you're not sure, there are obviously loads of instructional videos out there in the world, but with the compression, what I normally find is if you feel like you get a pumping sound from the compression, it's working too hard. You need to dial it back a little bit. So let's have a listen now. We're going to start playing around with the compressor.
I can't settle down without you. I can't fall asleep at all, looking at the stars above us. Did you ever fear you'd fall?
We've got the compressor in there, and what I also want to do is just play around slightly with the EQ to sweeten it a little bit. Now there's two ways you can do this. With the EQ, you've got the actual visual EQ, and we can play around with that. It is a basic EQ. You can't actually play with what's called the Q, which makes sure that the actual shape of the EQ flattens or widens. So from the previous video, I showed you the other plugin, which is LRC5, which is a parametric EQ. So we can then use that and then start playing around with the whole mix. So I'm going to click edit again, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add in our LRC5. My best advice, I know it sounds silly to say this, is just listen. Sometimes when everything is so visual, you get buried into, oh, that's higher than there on there, and I can see that's higher on there. What does it sound like? You need to have a listen to what it sounds like. If it sounds okay, if it's a little bit sweeter in the top end, or if it's a little bit muddy in the bass, adjust it accordingly.
Looking at the stars above us, did you ever fear you'd fall? Now we're in this game together, and luck, she's walking on my path. We can always find a nice little place and call it home for our first draft. You and me, we're just sitting in this tree, looking kinda high from here. What do you see?
Okay, so let's just do a little recap. We've got the noise gate we're not using, and the visual EQ we're not using. They're always going to be there anyway. But we're using a compressor, we're using the LRC5, which is an EQ, and then we're also using a peak limiter. And that's pretty much it. So what I've done is I've turned them all off. I'm going to play the track, and then I'm going to turn them all back on one at a time so you can hear what they're doing.
I can't settle down without you. I can't fall asleep at all. Looking at the stars above us, did you ever fear you'd fall?
For the purpose of demonstrating this to you today, obviously I've mastered this on headphones. Again, if you're mastering on speakers, just listen to it on a couple of different things. But now what we need to do, say that's our mastered track, we need to then get that out of GarageBand completely as a mastered WAV so we can then send that out and release it. So how we do this is very simple. Same process as we did before. We just tap on the document icon. It's now saving it. Of course, it's now just called My Song. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rename that. So we're going to call it You and Me, and I'm going to call it, big capital letters, Mastered GB. So it's Mastered GarageBand. Okay, so if we click done on that now, if I then hold that down, we can click share again, exactly the same. We're going to go to song, we're going to do the highest quality we can, which is 44.124-bit. Click share, and then what we do is we go open in. It's now going to remake that song, but with the adjustments we've made for mastering, and then that is ready for you to actually start playing with. So all we need to do is just put it somewhere. So we're going to go to save the files. I'm going to go back to where we were before on my iPad and go audio masters, and then save it in there. So the second way I want to show you how you can master a track is actually using an iOS app. There are actually quite a few mastering apps. If you just search mastering in iOS, you'll actually find there's quite a few there. There's different ones by different companies and they're all different prices, but one that I've actually used in the past and one that I'm very familiar with is one called Final Touch. Final Touch is actually made by Positive Grid and it is a dedicated mastering app. Now this app hasn't been updated for a little while, but it's still a fantastic app to master with, and it's very, very simple. And we've got a nice little workaround for you today to get the track that we've actually saved for in the iPad into Final Touch. Okay, so to get our track into Final Touch, what you would normally do in Final Touch when you actually have a look at it, it's actually got tap to load audio projects, and we can go import song, and there's a couple of options there, but it doesn't have the Files app yet. So what we need to do is, the quickest way to do this is audio paste. So let's come out of this, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into the Files app, we're going to go into our tracks. Now we're not going to use the mastered one we've just done, we're going to use the first one. And if we tap on it, there's our track, we can play it, but what we're going to do is we're going to click out, and what we're going to do is we're going to click copy. If we do that, it copies it to the iOS clipboard, and then if we go back into here, we can go back into Final Touch, tap on here, import song, and go to audio paste. We're going to give it a name, so we're going to go you and me, that'll do. Click done, and then it just says audio paste from the pasteboard. Click that, it's pasted it in, and there is our track. So at the very, very top, we've got a playhead, we've got an ACC, so you can listen to it what would be like in iTunes Plus. And then we've got the actual beginning and end here, the wave format. And then what you have is at the bottom, ignore the middle bit for a second, because the middle bit is dictated by the bottom. So at the very, very bottom, we've got positive grid on and off, so we can turn it completely off and just listen to the track as it is. But what we've got here at the bottom is the 6 different mastering tools that you can use with Final Touch, starting with pre-EQ. Now there's an orange line at the bottom here. Now as I turn this on, I can actually then bring these down, and these are going to affect the track. So you've got pre-EQ, you've got reverb, you've got the dynamics, you've got stereo imaging, post-EQ, and then the maximizer. So the great thing about Final Touch is we can dive straight into things like the dynamics and start playing with the multi-band compressor, which is amazing. Go into the stereo imaging, we can go into reverb, etc, etc. But also, they've got a load of presets. So underneath where the big power button is, there are presets, and we can actually go into specific instruments, or we can just go into general. We've got broadcast, genre-based instruments, general purpose, post-production, special effects, and utility. I can go into things like post-production. We've got things like voiceover or for effects. We've also got things like special effects, so bass maker, cymbals only, guitar amp. What I prefer to do, because obviously this is a full musical track, go into genre-based. So there's loads of different genre-based ones there. We've got country, we've got hip-hop, house, jazz. We've got boosts, so the basic ones. We've got boost, we've got widening, we've got rock. We've got lots of different ones there. So I'm going to start playing around with it. So if I went into something like country rock, and then it'll change it. If I go to country pop, that'll change again. So let's go with country rock for now, and then what we can do is we can get out of this and then start having a listen to see what it sounds like. So I'm going to turn positive grid off. We're going to just hit play, and I'm going to turn it back on, and you'll hear the difference. Now I'm just going to turn it off.
I can't fall asleep at all, looking at the stars above us. Did you ever fear you'd fall?
So this is fantastic. What we can do is we can just hit a preset, turn it on, and actually get everything we need. Almost like we've just handed it to a mastering engineer and they've done it for us. So I like the way it's done it, and all I need to do is get it out of Final Touch. Now currently it doesn't actually support iOS 13 Files app, but it does support Audio Share. If you don't know what Audio Share is, it's a fantastic app, and think of it like the audio file management system for your iPad. So what you can do is you can click on this, we can go to Audio Share, we can say what we want. So we're going to go you and me mastered. I'm going to do 24-bit. We're going to have it in WAV, and we click export. Now what it's doing is it's bouncing the track down, a little bit like we bounced the track down in GarageBand. It's making that live for us, and then all we need to do is open Audio Share. It'll put it directly in. Now once it's in Audio Share, what you can then do, of course, you can then put that anywhere you like. So we can then put that into files if you want to. We can actually then send it out to where we release the track. Imagine if there was one website that you could take all your fans to, no matter whether they listen to you on Spotify or Apple Music or any streaming site, and they can get your music. Well, now there is, and it's called Hyperfollow by DistroKid. Let me explain. Let's say you want to tell people about your releases on Spotify or Apple Music. Instead of trying to send them directly to your album page or artist page, you can send them to your Hyperfollow page. There's some real benefits to doing this. For example, anyone who clicks the button on your hyperfollow page will automatically follow you on Spotify. In addition to this, the button will automatically save your music to their library, and you'll be given each fan's email address. You'll even be able to see the other music that your fans are listening to, even if that artist is not being distributed through DistroKid. You'll also get geographic information about your fans. You'll also know how many people visited the hyperfollow page and how many followers added you. Another great option is pre-save. If you've uploaded your release to DistroKid and it's not yet live with Spotify, Hyperfollow automatically turns into a pre-save service. Fans can click the button at any time, even before your album or single or EP goes live. DistroKid will then detect the moment your album goes live and will automatically add all your new followers and saves on your release day. DistroKid will even email those followers and let them know when they can start listening. Hyperfollow is a free service for all DistroKid users, no matter which tier of DistroKid you're using, and it supports all your releases through DistroKid, even your previously released tracks. So what have you got to do to get this up and running? Go to your DistroKid account and sign in. Click on Settings, which is the gear icon, and then click Hyperfollow. Just remember, Hyperfollow is a free service. It comes free with your DistroKid membership. If you've not yet signed up, it's normally $19.99 for an entire year for unlimited uploads. But we've given you a special link that's on the screen now. It gives you 7% off your first year's annual membership, no matter which tier you pick. So thank you to DistroKid for helping us with this link. And also thank you to you guys for supporting the channel as well. So the third way that I want to show you how we can master a track that we made in GarageBand is by using a mastering service. This is where you send your audio file to a company. What they do is they master it for you and then send it back. When I say send it, we're sending it digitally, and it arrives basically in a couple of minutes. What I want to show you today, which I think is one of the best, I've actually used these guys previously and they're called CloudBounce. So if you go into the internet, have a look at cloudbounce.com. The reason why I like this is because you can preview the track even before you've paid for it. So when you go to cloudbounce.com, there is a pricing, and the price for it is $4.90. So what we can do is we're going to go and grab that file. So I just tap browse, and then we go onto iPad. Now I've got audio masters. Now obviously I'm not going to pick one of the mastered ones. We're just going to go for the you and me. And if I tap on that right now, what it'll do is it'll literally just upload it straight to them. So we'll transfer the audio over to CloudBounce, and then whilst that's happening, it says feel free to click on the master button. Mastering will start as soon as the file's uploaded, and you've got a couple of options as well. So we can go choose mastering options, and that's what we're going to do today. So if I tap on that, we've got choose mastering options. If I scroll this down a little bit, we've got mastering options of which style you want. So we've got a default style, we've got hip hop, we've got electronic, we've got all these different ones. So I'm going to go with rock and pop. That's what I like. And if you go back to where it says mastering options and tap on that, it's got this little honeycomb style thing here where you can go louder, warmer, less warm, less loud, brighter, more. And so there's lots of options here. So what I want to do is I want it a little bit brighter. So whilst this is uploaded, you can actually choose. And the great thing about this is you can re-choose before you commit to it. So you can have a listen, and what they do is they give you a little playhead to play the track between mastered and unmastered, and you can hear the difference. What I really like about this is through the power of the internet that we're actually sending this through to CloudBounce, and obviously they process it and then send it back, and they send a low quality version for you to preview, and then if you commit to it, you'll get the full quality versions. Now you get the MP3, you get a 16-bit WAV, and you get a 24-bit WAV as well. The great thing with iOS 13 on the iPad is that when you browse the internet using Safari, it's the desktop version. So I don't have to go to a computer to actually finalize a master. I can actually drop it in right here. So now we get this, which says it's waiting in the queue, and then what it'll do is it'll do analyzing and processing the signal. There we go, it's already analyzing and processing it. And this is not happening on my iPad, this is happening at the other end at cloudbounce.com. And then what it'll do is it'll then send me the low quality version back to have a listen to, just to see basically what it sounds like. And if I'm happy with it, I can then pay for it. Here we go. Okay, cool. So we've got the track mastered successfully. It says, please take a listen. So this is what it looks like before you pay for it, or to log in and pay for it. And what it does is it shows you the WAV file, and there's a big play button, and there's an option there which says mastered. If you tap that, you can go from mastered to unmastered. So I'm going to put the headphones on. We're going to have a listen, see what it sounds like. Now the great thing about this is before we get going, it says underneath, edit this master. Do you want to tweak the sound a little bit? So you can actually tweak it, and then you have to send it back, and then you have to wait for it to come back again, and they remaster it for you. This option is fantastic because actually you can tweak it the way you want. So I'm going to hit play. We'll have a listen to it mastered. Let's have a look what it looks like unmastered. Now let's turn mastering back on.
I can't settle.
So let's go a little bit further in. Let's go to that big part there.
Bummers. Did you ever fear you'd fall?
So there's a definite improvement there, and this is one of the many different mastering services that are out there in the world. And then what you can do is you can log in and then go and grab that full version. So now what I've done is I've logged in and I can actually download the master. But have a look at the bottom here. It says, do you want the stamp of approval from award-winning ears? If this track means a lot to you and you've got the budget, you can actually send this track to Abbey Road Studios. So guaranteed turnaround time is 5 business days. And then what they'll do is they'll actually get a human to actually master it for you. One of their mastering engineers will actually do it for you. It is $120 per track, but it is one of those things where if you want to take it to the next level, they will sort that for you. Now I'm going to use the track that they've got here. I already have an account with CLOUDBOUNCE.com. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go download this master, and then what it's going to go is it's going to say we're processing the final master for you. It does take a couple of minutes to get that sorted. It's available on your CLOUDBOUNCE.com dashboard, and then you can download it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download that track and we're going to bring it into Audio Share and show you the difference between that, the mastered one we did in GarageBand, and the one that we did in Final Touch. So I've just brought you to the app Audio Share. The reason I've brought you here is because I've put all the tracks that we've done today into Audio Share. So that we start with the youandme.wav. That is the one which we mixed, and we brought that mix out. That's before we mastered it. And I just want to show you the audio wave format. So this is You and Me, and you can see the audio wave format here as I move my finger across. And we can see that it's actually not at the top. The top would be 0 dB. Now the next one up from that is audio, You and Me Mastered GB. Now look at the difference. This is actually when we started putting our own stuff on there, like the compressor, the LRC5, and you can see there that the audio wave format is much, much bigger. And then one on top of that, this one is actually the one that was done with Final Touch, and it's very, very similar to the one that we mastered. A little bit of change there. Final Touch does have a lot of things going on at the same time, so it's got a multi-band compressor, it's got a maximizer, it's got stereo imaging as well. And a final one there at the bottom you can see mastered with CloudBounce. So there's a loads of difference there between the one that we actually mixed out, and you can physically see it on the actual wave format, but also there's slight variations when you hear it actually in the headphones. So why am I showing you 3 different ways to master? Well, first of all, you've got to remember that mastering in GarageBand is completely free. Even the LRC5 plugin is free. So we've got a free master as well as mixing. And the other two, when we go mastered with Final Touch you have to pay for that app. It's £15 at the moment. And then CloudBounce is a pay per track mastering service, which is fantastic, and it's only a couple of pounds, or about $5, $4.90, but you can master completely free yourself with GarageBand. Now, I wanted to show you those 3 different ways because there is more than one way to do mastering, and obviously you have to learn what a compressor does, what limiting will do to your track in order to get the best out of it. A quick thank you to DistroKid, who are sponsoring this series, and if you haven't done it yet, have a look at the link that's on the screen now. It gives you 7% off your first annual subscription with DistroKid, so you can release as much music as you want for 2020. If you want to support this channel a little bit further, then there's a couple of nice links in the description box, including buymeacoffee.com, so you can buy me a coffee and keep it going. If you haven't yet already, click the subscribe button, hit that bell, and you'll know when the next video goes live, which is all about releasing this song out into the world using DistroKid so we can put it on all the streaming sites. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.